All right, we're live. So, welcome everybody. You are watching this in the PowerPath community group, and I want to welcome my beautiful wife, Allie. Allie and I are going to do some goal setting and kind of like more of like a podcast style discussion today on actually how to set goals for the rest of the year as a couple and as business partners. So, welcome, Allie.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the formal invite for your wife in the next room. So I just thought that when Kyle and I were discussing what would be a good topic for today, what better than New Year goals, right? So now that we're in January, I thought it would be just a cool process to talk through like what Kyle and I do, how we like start the year going into this, and what are the strategies that we use to do that. Just to give everybody insight, it can be super helpful for people that don't normally sit down and plan out goals. Especially if you don't plan out goals with your spouse or partner, but then also seeing how we take those and relate that into business. Because for us, it is very much about integration fully between our family and our business and, personal goals as well. Because the more integrated everything is, the more everything ties together. And just the better outcomes you're going to get when you feel just the congruency between everything that's going on in your life. It just makes everything string together more peacefully.
When you're both on the same page, it always helps. We talk to a lot of people that are couples in business or couples in STRs, and we have to remember something I think that we forget through the years of like growing STR business is at the end of the day, it's a business, and we need to treat it as such. So like we talk about like, well, we want to do this, we want to do that. I want to, take this money and go over here and do this. I want to take this money and go over here. There was a statistic I saw the other day that 90% of businesses never hit $1 million a year. And then 0.4% of those businesses hit 10 million a year. So if you're not, you think about like 90 people out of 100 don't hit $1 million a year. And that doesn't say like, well, they only stay at 50K or they, it could be from 50K to 990K. But I think a big problem of not hitting $1 million a year is not being on the same page with your business partner or your spouse. Either businesses dissolve, they die, they just never grow because you're not in the same, like you're not on page with each other. And so you both have totally different wants that never come together. So that's like when I started seeing the statistics for this stuff, I really started growing into like what the reasons of why that is. And I think this is a big one. Not being on the same page and not being in alignment is a big reason why people don't take it to the next level and actually grow their businesses. They just stop, or they get comfortable, or they go back and work a W-2 or whatever. And I think there's a lot of us that like yearn for working with our spouse in our business. And a lot of times the other spouse is like, I'm not really like, I haven't jumped on board yet. I'm not there. There's things that we both want separately. So I think aligning is huge, and not just in business, but in personal life too. So
yeah, well, I think this is the reason I would not say like number one reason for failure, but I do agree that this is definitely a reason for a lot of people's failure that want to do business together as a couple. And I do feel like that a lot of it comes from where we lose sight of like what we want as individuals in a relationship, and then those things aren't really talked about. Like when you have kids, like after you get married, you have kids, or like you've been together for a while and maybe you do have kids, or the different dynamics that are coming into a relationship. I think that people like lose sight of that communication piece, and they just stop communicating about what they really want. And then when it comes to goals, they just stop and like lean into what the other person wants because they don't want to express how they feel. Or even when it comes to business, they forget that it's supposed to be a rough road at the beginning. Everybody has to take their lashes. And everybody just thinks that working with your spouse is supposed to be a breeze. They don't remember that, like, just like every startup business, like every business partnership, it's not going to be a smooth road from the beginning. And I think that a lot of people aren't willing to admit their faults, especially for goals that they don't hit, and take it to the next level and say, okay, like, how can we remedy this? How can we move forward? But a lot of that is because couples, again, they tend not to take one hat off and put the other hat on. They tend to just keep on the spousal hat the whole time versus saying, right now, I'm not your spouse, I'm your business partner, and this is how I feel. And so I think that that's one thing I want to talk about today. I think that we have to do, like, we do a better job now, but it was not always like that in the beginning. And I think that a lot of couples get lost in that. They get lost in that, like, oh, well, I just left my W-2. We're doing this together now. Now what? And they'll go to set goals, and they're still very much, when they're setting the business goal, in spousal mold, or vice versa, right? Like, when they're setting their business goals, they're focusing their personal goals more towards their business goals instead of like putting on their individual hat or putting on their spouse hat and setting goals differently. And so I think that's a big piece of today too. And like how we personally set goals, how we set goals together for our relationship and our family, and then how we switch that hat over and talk about business, and create that alignment.
Okay. So let's talk about, as spouses in business, and we have multiple businesses together. So when we look at goal setting and we reflect on last year, we talk about, like, where we document what we wanted, right? For business and personal, and we've done workshops and retreats and all this stuff. And we go back and we analyze everything that we have hit or have not hit. It's pretty amazing, one, when you track it and then you actually go through it and say, okay, we didn't hit it this year. Is there a reason? Or maybe it just wasn't that important, or we put it on the goal list and we had way too many goals. Like, our focus was too spread out and things didn't happen. Because the things that did happen are goals that we actually set, right? Like, one on the bucket list for you, Allie, was taking your mom to a new country overseas. And we did that. It was an opportunity that we didn't really plan for. And it came up, and then we just took advantage of it. And we said, okay, boom, that actually didn't just cross it off the goal list, it crossed it off the bucket list. So things like that, like vacations, time together, date nights, whatever, for the family side. And so, like, let's talk about setting goals for the family first before we get into business. Like, let's just separate them. Like, we have to, right? Let's separate them, and let's just talk about setting goals for the family. What are the things that we look at when we set goals for the family?
Yeah. So for us, like, we put ourselves kind of obviously into that family bucket. And so we have a couple different buckets underneath the family that we look at. So the first thing is, we look at our relationship. So we're kind of looking at that love aspect. So we make a goal for us, around certain things that we want to do together, or things that we want to improve on, like within our relationship, whether that, like, a great example, like Kyle said, is that date night? Is that other certain things that we feel like should be made a priority? Another thing we look at is travel. We always set, like, travel goals with, something for us to do together, just ourselves. And then we also set, like, usually one or two, dependent upon kind of like the trips that we know we want to plan, for our kids, so as a family unit. And then I would say the third piece is obviously, for family, we are setting, like, larger goals for lifestyle. So as an example of that, our lifestyle family goal is to start building our forever home this year. And so those are kind of like the three buckets, I would say, that we look into for family. And then I would also say that the fourth bucket under that is we would set individual goals for ourselves. if we're just kind of separating it between family and business, that fourth goal on that family side would be what are your individual goals? And I think that we've had this discussion before, that it's very hard to separate the me from the we, especially in a relationship. And I think that we've had to grow a lot in that aspect to start to reflect on things that like what we want individually, not just what we want together. And one of our goals last year was like to start our day every day together, and we wanted to take the kids to school every day together. We wanted to go to the gym together, and that was one of our individual goals. We both had that same individual goal, but it was something that we both wanted because we discussed it, and I kind of had to pull Kyle into that. I definitely hit my goal first of like starting into like a new gym program, and then had to kind of just pull him along. And I think that that's something that couples also need to be aware of, and we can just provide transparency on, because like sometimes, and it goes both ways, one of us is pulling the other one. Like it's not always that like we're just both like super successful in our goals and we're just like totally pushing each other through. It's more of like, hey, like why don't you have your act together? Because I'm doing this, like, whoever's making the comment or whatever, just pulling the other person.
I think it's
accountable.
Yeah, I think it's important too, because so we all have, like, if we go through what's called like a perfect average day, we all have, and this is something that Allie, like, we struggled with when we first started setting our perfect average day, is that your perfect average day and my perfect average day were not the same. Where a lot of people think they have to be the same. So like mine included like taking Riley to school every morning, but it didn't include picking her up every day. So like it was kind of this weird, like, you're trying to perform this day, but you're not actually thinking about, the things that you forget about, or the things that you don't think about still have to happen. So one thing was like going to the gym. So we have to remember that we have kids. So we can't both leave and go two separate places to a gym, because I was going to Crunch and you were going to Burn, and like it doesn't actually make sense, because I think that there's like an echo in your mic. Yeah, okay, that'll work. So there was this weird, like, we can't both go to the gym if they either, like, let's just say neither one of them has daycare. We can't both go to the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning. It's just, we have kids. We have two kids. They have to go somewhere. And they can't come with us if we don't go to a place that has daycare. And we can't wait to drop them off and then go to the gym, because our work day starts. We have meetings, we have team stuff. Like, so Allie found Burn Boot Camp, and they have daycare. And so I canceled the Crunch Fitness. Well, I tried Burn first, right? I tried it. I was like, yeah, okay, like whatever. And then Allie like fell in love with it. And so I tried it and I was like, this is legit. Like Burn Boot Camp, what's up? And I canceled the Crunch Fitness. So our day includes like going to drop the kids off super early and then going to Crunch. And then we don't have anything scheduled past like, let's say like before 9 o'clock. There's nothing scheduled in our day. Now that would include us working maybe a little bit later if we needed to fit in a meeting or whatever, or client call or whatever. So that kind of schedule, we set it in the beginning, and it went back and forth for a while until we dialed it in. So, but it's important to remember that like when we have our perfect average day, or what we want our schedules to look like, they are not always the same. Most of the time they're not the same. They just kind of like intersect at some points in the day. So ours intersects like at the very beginning in the morning, and then at lunchtime it may intersect, and then of course in the evening it intersects. But a lot of people don't think about that. They're just like, we're going to work together. We're going to be with each other all 24/7. We're going to drop the kids off together. We're going to do this together. And realistic, like if that's what you want, then great. But realistically, it's not actually correct, because both of you want to do something different through the day. You see your perfect average days differently. So when you start looking at your goals, you have to make your goals align with your whatever day that you want. Like if it's a daily goal or a weekly goal, a monthly goal, whatever. So like for us, going to the gym is a big goal. So we put the lifestyle, like the health into it. Say, okay, we want to go to the gym like 4 days a week. Well, what does that look like? How does that work with our daily schedule? And if the goal is to go 4 days a week, and that doesn't include like weekend or whatever, Burns closed like every Sunday. So like we have to be through the week. Well, there's some days that I can't go to the gym, and some days I can. And so we have to like look at that and say, okay, if we're going to make a goal of 4 days a week, we need to make our actual calendars reflect that and allow us to do that. And only you can change your calendar. So,
and I think that another part of this that I talk to a lot of students about when they're goal setting is that when you go into these new goal setting, the reason that a lot of people have failure by setting their goals at the beginning of the year and like not seeing them through is because they're not making them even remotely what they can believe is obtainable. They already don't believe they're obtainable. And and that measurable piece, like what Kyle said, like a lot of people just have a New Year's resolution of like go into the gym, but they don't say like, okay, I'm going to commit to 3 days a week at the gym for 45 minutes, right? And that like feels super attainable. I can squeeze 3 workout sessions a weekend at 45 minutes to an hour, right? Versus, and so we definitely try to, I think that's an important piece to note is like as we're going through these goals, we are saying, okay, well, how are we going to measure that goal? And what's the timeline for that goal? And all of that. And so I think that that's a huge key part of that is saying like, yes, okay, this is the goal, but like, how am I going to hold myself accountable to this? And does it feel obtainable to me? Like our financial goals did not feel obtainable when we first set them. And I think that it was hard for us to resonate with them because we did not yet believe that they were obtainable. But once you can, bring yourself into that awareness of those, it's completely obtainable, it's completely doable, then and only then will you start to like actually look at the measurement and stay on track with what you're doing.
I think it's we talk about like, okay, like we set a goal. One of our personal goals is to build a house this year, right? So then we have to find the land, we have to get qualified, have the cash, whatever, have the floor plan, whatever. But the goal is to start building this year. So what does that involve? Well, that involves us finding the land. Cool. What does that involve? Like knowing where we're going to buy land. Cool. But that involves pulling up Zillow and Realtor and having the buy box and having the alerts constantly in our face. So we set a goal last year to acquire the land, but we didn't focus. We'd focused on it for like a week, then I'd be off of it, and then I'd focus on it for a couple of days, then I'd be off of it. It really wasn't a goal that we paid attention to. And it reflected like,
I think it was also because like we had other goals that were in alignment with that, but what we didn't realize at the time was like those goals had to happen first before we could ever do the land.
True.
And so like there were certain things that had to happen. And I think this is a very good place to say, like, while we did not meet the goal last year, the goal has not changed. The timeline has changed. And I think that that's an important note for everybody on here to remember. Like, I'm going to let you finish, but like, so when Kyle just said that, like, there is no, like, when it comes to certain things like that, like, for the family bucket, we don't look at it as a failure anymore on like, oh, well, like, man, like, I'm so upset with myself. We didn't hit that goal. We step back now and evaluate it. I would say before, when we first got into this as couples in business together, we would be like, well, why? Like, it was kind of like a blame thing too. Like, well, why didn't we do this? What did we not do? What did you not do? What did I not do? To meet those specific goals.
Well, it's never been, right?
But now we just don't do that anymore. It's just more of like, okay, so we didn't hit it. It's just it's just way more, I don't want to say less emotional, but I just feel like that's kind of what it is. It's just more analytical, right? Where it's just like, okay, we didn't hit that goal. Why did we not hit it? And now like the timeline has changed, or the deadline, or whatever you want to say, for that goal is altered. So what are the steps that we need to take? And so I think that's just an important note I just wanted to throw out there, that just because we didn't hit it does not mean that it's not still the goal. And I think that was something we had to learn, that it's not necessarily the time, right? It's that it probably just was not supposed to come to us in that time, and that's okay. The time just changed.
Yeah. And so back to like, if you set a goal, you need to pay attention to it. So we always start with our family goals, our personal goals first, right? And then we go into business. So without the family, we don't have family business. It's just that simple. We could do $20 million a year, but if we don't have anybody to share it with, there's no point in doing $20 million a year. Now, for us, if for everybody, if you set a goal, like let's say it's going to the gym, or let's say it's buying the land, you have to be looking at that every single day. Or if you're trying to grow your bank account to a certain number, you need to be looking at it every single day. If you're trying to sell a certain product at a certain price or whatever, you need to be looking at your numbers every single day, because where attention, focus goes, energy flows. If we're not paying attention to land that comes up for sale, I will never see it. Allie will never see it. So we have to pay attention to it. And as it's in our face, we'll see the deals come up. We'll think of creative finance. We'll think of down payments. We'll think about all this stuff. But if we don't look at it, it won't happen. So yes, other things had to happen last year to get the land, or things had to come first. But at the end of the day, I attribute 90% of the not hitting the goal last year to the fact that we weren't paying attention to it. It's just that simple. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're going to be going to the gym 4 days a week, you need to be paying attention to your alarms, what their Burn has, what is it called? Their call outs for the day, their itinerary. What is it called?
Oh, the protocol?
Yeah. So Burn has protocol. So looking at the protocol, looking at what you're eating. If you're trying to, I need to drop 50 pounds this year. I'd love to do it this month. I want to drop 50 pounds this year. So that's a personal goal that I've set for myself. On the first, I said, I'm going to go 365 days with no soda. I think the most that we've went is probably 3 weeks, 4 weeks with no soda, something like that. We've done good, but I want to go 365 days this year with no soda. And I'm on day 3. But I'm not looking at 365 days. I'm looking at 10 days at a time, 20 days at a time. When I get to 30, then I'll say, okay, I'm just going to double that. When I get to 60, we'll just double that. And then we'll be halfway through the year by the, you double that twice, you'll be halfway through the year. So that's a personal goal that I'm setting, is I feel way better when I don't drink soda. I remember, because I didn't drink soda for a while. So we set the personal goals, but that's something that we have to pay attention to. If every time I look in the fridge and I see a soda and I'm like, you start fighting with yourself. I think I'm going to drink the soda. But if you instead change it, go get a cup of coffee, or which I have several sitting here, or a water bottle, and you're carrying around your water bottle, you get your flavored water. Whatever you're focusing on is going to happen. If you focus on soda, you're going to end up drinking the soda, because you won't fight the willpower, because that's all you're focused on. If you focus on water, that's what you're going to drink. So, all right. So
but also,
go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, I think it's also important to note kind of what our process looks like for this. So what Kyle and I do is we take time individually to decide what we want our goals to be for those 4 buckets. So we'll take time not speaking to each other. Obviously we have conversations leading up to it, but we'll take time individually to say, okay, these are our 4 buckets for family. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write down what I think I want in those 4 buckets, or what I know I want in those 4 buckets. Right. And then he'll do the same. And then we will come together. We go out for dinner, and, we go away, so we're not distracted with kids, and we'll sit down, and that's when we have the conversation of that. And we will look at what our 4 buckets looks like and create a goal statement around each of those goals that we're putting in the 4 buckets. And so that's how we do it together, or individually and then together for the family side of the buckets, if that makes sense. So I just want to kind of talk through that process. And then I think it's also important to note that like when we set those goals, like we are putting timelines around those. And I think it's also a great time we sit down and we also plan out. So like if it's an example, if it's part of the vacation travel piece, we go ahead and look at like the calendars for our kids' school. We're looking at the stuff for ourselves and like what we know we already have planned coming up for this year. And we go ahead and put those vacation times on the calendar so we can go ahead and plan ahead. So keeping that in mind, making your goal obtainable, making it measurable, and giving it a deadline, right? Or a timeline for that to happen. So keep those three things in mind. And then again, if you're doing this with your spouse or your partner, I think it's very empowering and it brings up a lot of good conversational points. If you can decide what you want individually for those buckets and then bring them together at the same time and then go through.
Yeah. And we talk about like time, right? Like we don't have enough time for this. We don't have enough time for that. You have the time, especially like if you're in a W-2, you have between 5 a.m. and say 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., whatever time you have to be at work or log on, whatever. You have those hours before and you have the hours after. So if you get off at 5 and you do whatever you want till 9, like you have those hours every day to go to the gym, go shopping for better food, spend more time with the family, plan goal setting, whatever it is, go for a walk, focus on yourself. I don't care what it is, but everybody has those same hours every day to say, I can get, if you're trying to build a business, whatever, I have those times before and after my core time to build whatever I'm going to build. Better body, better health, better relationship, day, nights, whatever. So there was a time where like I got out of the gym and I never went to the gym for God, I don't know how long, 5 years, 6 years. I never went back to the gym. And then we started going again. And what I attributed it to was I'd have to give up something to go to the gym. I have to give up time with my family. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. But realistically, if I wanted it bad enough, I could have went before y'all ever got up. I could have came back before y'all ever woke up. And same thing in the evening. If I wanted it bad enough, I just didn't want it bad enough. But now that I found where it aligns with what we do, honestly, it's like it's almost more convenient, but we have moved other things, and I can do it with you. So I believe that like every couple, especially couples like in business, do something difficult together. And going to burn is so easy for me. I don't even sweat. But I'm just kidding. But it's like it's a really tough thing to do, but you can do it together. And there's something that Allie and I went to a conference and watched Joe and Wendy Papazan talk about that. And that's the co-owner of Keller Williams. And he said, like, they have a personal trainer come to their house. They do all these things together. They work hard together. They go through hard things together. And I was like, that is so true. That is what we need to do. And so we talked about it. We didn't pull the trigger on it until this year end of last year, doing it and going to the gym together. And I love it. Like when we get done, we go in together, we work out together. We're almost always partners in the gym, and then we leave together. So it's just more quality time in a different atmosphere and a different environment than being in the kitchen, being on a sales call, being on a team call, whatever. It's a totally different environment. Being on a date, like it is a totally different environment, and it's a way to see your spouse in a different light, and I love it. I absolutely love it. So, but anyways, continue.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to bring up just kind of like what our process looks like on that, and kind of putting them on the calendar and all that. And one of the things that new for us this year, a step in that process that we're adding is we got the big ass calendar, and and so we're going to be utilizing that. Yeah, it's a whole brand. So we got that, and we're super excited to be able to use that and put everything on there. But some other ideas that, like, if you don't want to do the calendar and you want to do something else, again, I just feel like this was a good time to talk about it. There are other ways that you can document and track your goals. One of them is as simple as, getting a spreadsheet and documenting what your goals are going to be. And then you can look at them each quarter, right? And so you can kind of set those quarterly goals, and then you guys can review. And basically, your quarterly goals would be like the stepping stones to that larger goal that you set. And then it kind of gives you a breakdown. And so we do like that process. We do take the time to do that process. And I think that that's where a lot of people don't, and that's where they fail, is because they'll set like very large goals at the beginning of the year, and then they don't take the time to look at like breaking them out. And when you break them out and you can look at them in small chunks, they seem way more obtainable. But it also is keeping it top of mind consistently, right? So so that is a way that you can do it. Another fun way that I've seen people do, obviously, the vision boards. I think that's super important no matter what. Kyle and I both have our own vision boards. They're completely different from each other. They're both like, we both have them as our screensavers on our computer. We have them as screensavers on our phones. But then another cool and fun way, and you can even, if you are spouses with kids like we are, something fun to do is to get your kids that are old enough involved, is you can do a bingo board too. So once you figure out what your goals are, you guys can actually create bingo boards together. And then when each of you, even the kids, hit a goal, you get to mark it off, right? And basically the first one to bingo wins. And you can kind of set like prizes within, your family or whatever you want to do. So if you kind of want to gamify it a little bit, so take some time to consider like how you're going to track those and what you think is going to be the best for you, because everybody is different. And I think that that's something that we also got caught in when we first started, Kyle, was trying to do it like mentors and things before us were doing. And it just didn't work for us. It wasn't resonating with us as much. So we had to find the way that worked best for us and our family. And I think we've done that and we've been successful with it. But every family is different. So figure out what works for you and go for it. So, but yeah, so with that, we'll kind of just jump into the next piece, and that's the business piece. So we've talked about the family. Again, just a little recap on that is the family bucket is going to include that individual goal, what is like the love goal, and so that would be primarily like for your relationship with your spouse. And then we have the goal for travel, or again, just doing things with your family. And then we have the last one, which is lifestyle. And so those are the 4 buckets that we look at for family. And then now moving into business.
I'm just putting this in the chat. So, so for the family goals on the buckets, I've got, I'm just missing love. There we go. All right, keep going. Yeah, I keep tagging somebody by accident. There we go. All right, go ahead. I'm just going to put this in the chat so people can refer back to it.
Yeah. So then when we look at business, we start with, I would say, our overarching financial goal is where we start for business. And so what is that big goal going to be? And that's usually related to, obviously, like I said, financial. It's going to be like a yearly or monthly income goal that we're trying to get to. We like monthly. Other people like yearly. I think that, again, is something that's got to resonate with you. But we feel like if you're doing a monthly goal, it's, again, top of mind. And you're just super focused on it. And where your focus goes, your energy flows, right? So you want to take it from there, Kyle?
Yeah. So we go monthly too, because, and I advise a lot of people go monthly because our kids are still home, by the way. So we say we are a family business. Both of our kids are still here until Monday. So they go back to school Monday. Anyway, so you go monthly because you can slack off to the end of the year. If you're going yearly, you can slack off to the end of the year till like October and be like, holy crap, we're not even close. But when you go monthly and we say, hey, like the goal is 100K a month or whatever, Well, if you get to day like 25 and you're saying, well, I'm only at like 60 or 65, how do I get to 100? That'll reset. That timer resets on the next month. So maybe one month you did 110 or 120. That'll kind of help supplement, the month before. But if you don't pay attention until October, you're going to be really short, and you're going to be so short that you can't catch up. And then you're going to be like making excuses and, oh, I did this and, oh, okay, it's okay for this. But if you look monthly, that's like almost going back down to weekly. Like if I looked at not drinking soda for a month and I just said like, I might have just picked one up over here, picked one up over, but like then I said, okay, at the end of the month, did I drink any soda? I had a couple. Well, if I looked at it like, hey, I didn't have any soda till lunch. Okay, lunchtime, I don't have any soda till dinner. Okay, dinner time, the next morning. So you go like almost by the 6 hours or 12 hours, you're not going to drink any soda because you're always going to be paying attention to it. If you lose concentration and lose focus on your timeline, like it's just going to go out of control. So that's why I advise and we do monthly financial revenue goals. So revenue, and that could be gross bookings for the STRs. It could be sales. It could be personal. It could be whatever. But then we like put all those in a bucket and say like, how much does it need to be a month? And that's how we set a goal per month.
Yeah. So we set that like monthly, like very ostentatious goal. And for that, like, I think it's also important to note here that like what it should not feel obtainable. And I kind of mentioned that before. It should not feel obtainable in the beginning because you shouldn't know how to get there, right? Because what we're talking about for this is we're talking about life-changing goals. Okay. So the number that we set for this financial goal is a life-changing number. And it's not just life-changing for us. When we step into the business, the big overarching goal, we are looking at not just how we can change our lives, it's how can we change the lives of others. And so what does that look like? So whatever that goal is going to be for you. And so let's just say that we're looking at maybe your first goal is going to be you want to make $20,000 a month. That is a life-changing goal for a lot of people. And so if we look at that, then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of use that process. What Kyle mentioned before is we're going to kind of start working backwards. Okay, so what avenues do I want to use to pursue to make this goal? So for us, those avenues are real estate and education is basically what I would say for us, right? And so those are the two spaces that we're in. And so we'll say, okay, I know that I want to make this much money through these avenues. Okay, now we're going to take it a step further. We're going to say, okay, it's like under the real estate bucket, what do we believe is what should we achieve to get to that goal? Right. And then the same thing under the education piece. What should we achieve? And so as an example of this, last year when we did this, we set the goal to like for the real estate side, we were going to have so many properties under management by the end of the year. And then additionally with the real estate piece, we said that we were going to be under contract for another hotel. And then moving forward, we looked at that educational piece, and the goal was Power Path and starting Power Path and getting going on that. And so figure out your avenues, and then we start to break down what those goals are underneath the avenues that are going to bring us that money. Now, in the beginning, I would say a lot of people, like you're probably only going to have one avenue that you're going to focus on, and that's okay. I think that it's important to start somewhere and gain a lot of expertise and a lot of ground. And so start with the one. So in the beginning for us, it was just our property management company. And so we set a lot of goals around that. And we still do. And so if we just look at that avenue for now, what we would do is we would say, okay, maybe we're looking at adding X number of units to our management portfolio this year. And then we're going to take it a step further. Okay, so like, what am I going to have to do to meet that goal? And then we start breaking it out, right? And so that's when like your smaller goals that you're going to work on, whether those are the quarterly, the monthly, like however you're breaking them down for yourself, you're just going to continue to work backwards. And so for that, is that like contacting people? Is that I'm going to have to send out flyers? Is that I'm going to have to make more relationships? I'm going to have to go and do some more relationship driven interactions. The other thing is, okay, if we also have to consider the other piece of that is if I'm going to have a growing company and I'm going to bring on more properties, then who am I going to have to hire to do that? And so we have to take into account what our team looks like. And I think that's an important piece because remember, like I said in the beginning, we are looking at setting a life-changing goal financially. And part of that piece is changing other people's lives. And that includes our team members. So if it's not that we are hiring another team member or whatever, we are also taking that time to say, okay, we are trying to go to this level. Well, what does that look like in terms of helping our other team members change their lives and meet their goals? And that's something that we ask our team members every year. What's their goal for the year? What are they looking at? We try to like really instill this goal-oriented focus throughout our team. And we want them to know that we're here to help keep them accountable and also to help them reach their goals. And so as we're going through those particular avenues, every step we're taking those things into consideration, right? So again, the important thing to note on the business piece is we're starting from the very large in the clouds ostentatious goal. And then we are going to begin to work backwards and break it down. And we also think about like for us at the point that we're at, we have been so fortunate that the universe has put in front of us like some amazing opportunities towards the end of this year that are really setting us up for an amazing 2025. And we have to start forward thinking now as to what that looks like. And if we are able to move into being more omnipresent and changing more people's lives, like what are the people that we need to put in place to be able to do that? And how do people's roles change that are currently working with us right now? And that is something that's super important to us because what gives us success and how we find ourselves looking at ourselves as successful people is by making other people successful. And so I think that is always forefront of our mind because we are just here to serve, whether it's through our company, whether it's as a friendship, whether it's, just the guests that are coming to stay, even if it's just a team member. And so I think that we have to stay in that mindset as we're goal setting, right? And everything has to continually correlate. Now, additionally, I think that what's important is when you're setting this very large like business goal, we also take into account what does that look like towards the family goals we already set, right? Because obviously our business is what feeds our family. So we do take the time to like also break that down. Like, okay, we know these are the goals that we want to have for the family. What does that look like in terms of budget and everything and what we're doing? And is our goal big enough? Like, are we thinking big enough in order to be able to be successful at achieving all the goals that we have in the family bucket and the business bucket? And what are your thoughts?
I mean, it's important. Like, so when you talk about like the team goals, like what do you want? Like when last year we took out. So next week we're going out to dinner. Let me back up. You wonder where to do this stuff, right? Like, where do you go to set these goals? Do you go to a hotel? Do you go out to eat? Do you get a conference table? Like, what do you do? Do you do it in your living room? What I would suggest is you pull yourself out of your everyday environment. It doesn't have to be a crazy opulent hotel or anything like that. Would help, I'm sure. But what we're doing next week, and this is exactly what we did last week, is since Brittany is here, like in house, like we have 6 team members that are in the Philippines. So we have 6 virtual assistants. It's not real easy to just be like, hey, y'all come out here, or let's just go fly out there for a week. It's not like I would love to get to that, but we're not there. So we're going to go like we did last year. We're going to go to a really nice restaurant, the 3 of us, me, Allie, and Brittany, and we're going to say, okay, what do we start like, what do you want? Let's set some goals for you this year. And I remember last year we set a goal and she wanted a new forerunner was a goal. She wanted to have a certain amount of money in the bank. She wanted to do, X, Y, and Z on her goals. I was like, cool. Now, and we're going to reflect that this year. So we're going to go into next week. We're going to say, okay, here's where the goals were. How close are we with all this stuff? Now, some of the stuff is personal for her. Some of it's not. Some of it's more business, like she wants to have a certain title or she wants to have certain roles or whatever. Okay, how do we help you grow into that? Now, our responsibility is to grow the business to a certain point that allows her to hit those goals. Now, when we go in next week, we're going to talk about some of these goals because I know the forerunner is going to roll over to this year. I know that because she doesn't have a forerunner now. So when you have something like that, you say, okay, what do you want? Now, here's the vision of where we're going. And here's what we see you growing into. And what does that support? That supports the income, that supports this, that supports this. And so we want to figure out how we can create the business to go there. Now, what Allie and I have talked about a couple of weeks ago is restructuring our entire company into a hospitality company to say, okay, we have all these avenues, right? We have this management company, we have this management company, we have the hotel management, we have partnerships, whatever. That's going to funnel into one hospitality company. And off that might stream, like we already have hotel management. So like picking up another hotel and managing it for that. So that's going to be a restructure. And that discussion kind of sparks like, well, what about this income? What about that income? Who pays salaries out of this? Who pays? So it's more like a business strategy too, of like, hey, we want to have these goals. We want to have this, we want to have this revenue. If we're going to go to $10 million a year, if that's where we want to go in the hospitality side, what does that look like? So everything comes with it, right? Like the business strategy, the goal setting, the environment, all of that comes with it because that is a very high level meeting and a very high level conversation. A lot of people don't take it very seriously. They just go, they eat, or they just talk about it. Hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. And they don't say like, this is what we are doing. And this is how we're going to try to get there. So you're on mute.
I was trying to take the echo out. I think the other part of that, though, Kyle, is the piece that people miss is when we come back, we don't just stop there. Like all of our team members become aware of what the goals are, and then everybody gets to take a piece, right? It's like when we're goal setting, we're taking into account like everybody's role and what that looks like. And so when we come back and we share that with the team, they know what piece of that they're responsible for. And they know that like if they help us reach our goals, right, then we're going to help them reach their goals because everybody's going to benefit. And I think that what a lot of people think when they become business owners, or a lot of people's vision of business owners, is they're just all out to get it for themselves. When in fact, like what business owners should be viewed at is like we are supposed to be the ones that create the conducive environments that allow people to flourish in their own goals and aspects, and everything again should be in alignment and correlated. And I think that's an important piece that people leave out. And so when you are doing this as a business owner, you need to remember and you need to own the role that you are supposed to provide in this. And that is that it is very important for you to be a relatable boss, a relatable business owner. It is very important for you to know what the goals are of your team. It is also very important for you to be able to know how you can help and create those situations where they can be successful. But what your role is not to complete those goals for them. That is their job. It is our job to create the environment that is conducive to them hitting their goals. And if we can do that, then we know completely done our job. And
100%.
I know that like last year, like just the movements that many of our team members were able to make, and the situations they were able to put their families in was outstanding. And it made us super happy, made us like giddy, and almost made us want to cry that like for the opportunities that we are able to give people, we're changing their lives. And so, but we can only do that if we continue to remember that what our role is, and our role is just to continue to create the opportunities and the environment for them to be able to do that.
We also, like, a lot of team members, a lot of people that you hire don't have the same like goal mindset. They haven't been through masterminds. They haven't been through communities. They haven't had the mentors that you've had. And so when we come in and we're like, okay, what do you guys want to make? And they're like, what kind of question is that? Well, how much money do you want to make? I don't know. Okay, that's a good start, because saying I don't know is still a good answer. What do you want? So for like Brittany, she wants a 4Runner. Okay, cool. What does that cost? Well, I don't really know. I've never looked. So turning your wants into goals and actually making them realistic is like you mentoring your team to say, hey, look, this is how we think. This is how we approach whatever we want. This is how we get what we want. You have to put it in reality and actually get people to think through it. So no, our job is not to like hit their goals for them. So if you have a team member that says, I want to make $100,000 a year, let's just say, or you have a team member that says, hey, I want to make $10 an hour, $12 an hour, $20 an hour, $8 an hour, whatever. Say, okay, cool. How do we get there? Because a lot of us just want to say, they're at 10, here's $20 an hour. Because the expectation is like, well, I'm telling you what I want to make, so you're going to get me there. Well, if that's the case, then like it doesn't work that way. You can't just go from like 10 to 20. Like it's a gradual growth. It's a gradual thing. So like, let's hit milestones. Let's hit, hey, when the business does this, so you're incentivized to do this. When the business does this, you're going to get a pay change. When we do this consistently for 3 months, you're going to get a pay change. When we do this, you're going to get a pay change. So, maybe it's like stipends. It could be something different. Paying for somebody's phone bill, buying somebody a new laptop. There's other things than just the hourly wage to say, like, what do you want? Well, I would love to have a new laptop. Cool. What if we worked on X, Y, and Z and we supplied that? What if we worked on X, Y, and Z and we were able to help you with that car or with the tire, whatever? So understanding like what they want, any struggles that they're going through, you see them. You're not there to fix them for them. You were just allowing, like you were able to align yourself with what they want, and you can help them align with the business. Because at the end of the day, as the business owner, as the CEO, your job is not to be their friend. Your job is to survive the business. The business is the main thing. Now, if the business hits these goals, then your goals can be approached too with like income or cars or whatever, laptops or phones. But like a lot of times we forget, we're just like, oh, we hired our friend, we hired our mom or whatever. And like, we need to pay them what they want, or we need to get them the car that they want or whatever. And that's not what it's about. If we don't have a business, we don't have food on our table, right? If we don't have income, we don't have food on our table. We can't pay everybody else and still have nothing for the business and nothing for ourselves. It just doesn't make any sense. We might as well just go back and work in a W-2 job. But we have to keep growing. Our jobs are to grow. And a lot of people, especially in STRs, and you're building co-hosts, you're building properties, at the very beginning, you're doing everything. And you are the only employee in that business, and that's okay. And as you grow, that's why we set goals. As you grow, you understand, like, okay, you have to hire team members on, but you start pulling yourself out and you have to focus on the business, growing the business to hit goals and allow everybody to hit what they want. So understanding that when you're goal setting, understanding that big picture of like your job is not to be everybody's best friend. Your job is to continue and grow the business. If that happens, then everybody else's goals will be hit. That is super imperative, and a lot of people lose sight of that. We both lost sight of that for a couple of years. Like we were just maintaining, and we said, okay, what are we doing? This business needs to grow, and we have to pull ourselves out of certain day-to-day operations, whatever. But our job is to grow it. Are we going to go to 1 million, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million a year? Then what do we need to do? So, and it could be a totally different business structure that you're actually goal setting through. Like you realize your structure sucks. You realize your onboarding sucks for homeowners or clients or whatever. Change it. Pull yourself out of it and make it a little bit more autonomous. So that's a big thing that is actually identified in goal setting to say, like, how do we do $1 million a year and we're only doing $100,000 a year, for instance? Well, what we're doing now isn't working. So how do we change it? How do we break it and rebuild it? So that is something that will come in goal setting. And they say, hey, maybe it leads into another call or another meeting to say, how do we strategize around this? So, but I'll leave that there. I think that's just a big view that a lot of people just miss. Like they just stop thinking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, again, so the process that will follow for that is obviously like Kyle and I will have certain conversations for that leading up to that dinner. Like we've already started to have those conversations. We're going to document, and then that is when like the big discussion will happen. And the little goals, quarterly, smaller goals are going to get broken down at that meeting that we're going to have, that dinner that we're going to have. So we'll exit with a full plan for the year. And again, and now our new strategy for that is going to be that we're adding all of that, the family, the business, everything will be added onto that big ass calendar. So I think the biggest takeaway is that, like Kyle said, for us, we always start with family. Number one. So just like a full recap here, we always start with our family goals. And we start with those 4 buckets that Kyle dropped in the chat. And then once we know what we want for our family, then we transfer over and create alignment for the business, right? Because like Kyle said, the business is what puts food on our table and what supplies us to do all those things. So then we focus over and we look at our business and we start with that very large goal. We break it down into the avenues at which we're going to be able to provide income within our businesses. And then we break it down farther from that. And again, I think that the very important thing that Kyle spoke about is we are looking at how can we create accountability with team members that help them help us reach our goals, right? And so again, tying whatever they need or creating goals that will help them meet their goals that are directly tied to those business goals. And we think about that all the way through. So yeah, so that's just a little recap on what we do. And then again, our final thing would be taking those final notes of what that looks like, and we'll be adding them onto that calendar. And again, like find what works for you. Obviously, if the calendar thing, again, this is new for us. But what has worked well for us in the past is a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet has all of the goals. Then we break them down quarterly, and then we're able to break them down monthly, just to show like how you should be moving the needle each month. And then you're able to break it down each week of what's going to move the needle, right? So yeah, so that's the recap. We do hope this is helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. But this is just a little bit of a view into how we do it, how we have had success for goal setting as couples with family and business. And I do want to just give the disclaimer that like what works for us does not work for everybody, right? So like take the pieces that resonate with you, take the pieces that you may find from somebody else that resonate with you. The most important thing is that you're in alignment with each other. And you're in alignment across the board for your business, your relationship, your family, and everything in between, right?
100%. Yep, 100%. And so as you go, like some of your goals may, I don't want to say they change, but like you may realize like maybe they weren't big enough, or maybe they were so big that you were like, well, I'm definitely not going to hit that this year, but we're going to get close. Well, let's just let it roll over. Don't change it. If it's not big enough, then of course make it bigger. But if it's really big and you're like, I want to make $10 million this year. Like, okay, well, how much are you making now? If you're making $100,000 a year and you want to make 10 million, that's probably like, it's a little unrealistic. But what about next year? What about 2 years from now? Like, what could you do to change to get to 10 million? So like, don't set the goals to know that you're going to hit them, but put them like out. What Allie was saying is like, put them out there far enough to say like, I don't really know how I'm going to do this, but I really want to do this because this will change my life or whatever. So, and then whatever you do, make sure you're looking at them. Make sure they're accessible, easily accessible. So like your vision board, sticky notes, like whatever, it doesn't matter. And from there, you will grow or focus as energy flows. And every year we get better at this. Every year you will get better at this. And that's it. So if you guys have any questions, I can throw it in the chat here. You can shoot us at the DM. You could throw something in the main group. Either way works. And I mean, this is only January 3rd, so we have 362 days left of the year, and make it the best year yet.
Yep.
Is that it? You got anything else?
That's it. That's it. We look forward to helping you any way that we can, especially as you move forward and you're working in Power Path. We're super excited to be able to help you meet your goals because we just love seeing people be successful. So let us know, either one of us. You send us a DM, send us a drop a comment, but we will see you guys later.
All right. Talk to you later.